Hello guys, good evening and I'm Shrulipta. I'm back today with strings and functions. So today we will be learning about strings and functions, but before that I will be telling something about characters because last time I told you that about characters I will be completing in the next coming session. So first of all, what is character? So character is a data type that is used to store any single character. Okay. So what is single character now? So anything inside a single quote, a pair of single quotes is you can call it a character. So for example, you can see A is surrounded within the single quote and C is surrounded is also with a single quote. So like that we can store any single character using the single pair of quotes to store it in any character variable. So here you can see the uppercase B is surrounded by the single quote and is stored in the character variable. So here character is the name of the variable and here character is char, that is char, is the data type. So it is the keyword that is used to store the characters to declare any character data type variable. So whenever you write any cout character, so here you will get the output uppercase B. So here the uppercase and lowercase b both will be obviously different because whatever you give, any character you give inside the single quotes, that value you will be getting as the output. Also, alternatively, you can use any ASCII values to display certain characters like ASCII stands for American Standard Code for Information Interchange. So what it is actually, it consists of 128 codes for in characters. Like for single characters, it has got 7 bit of integer code which you can use. So here, for example, like char b. So b is the name of the variable. It is not the character because it is not within the single quote. So it is not the value. It is the variable name. So character is the data type and b equals to 66. And cout b will give the same thing that we got here because the uppercase b has the ASCII value 66. So you must be wondering that 66 is an integer and how we can store. So as I told you, ASCII code for this is for uppercase B is 66. So whenever we give directly any like valid integer code, ASCII code to any character, we will be getting the respective character as output. So as you can see, for capital A to like uppercase A to Z, the ASCII value is 65 to 90, and for lowercase a to Z it is 97 to 122, and for 0 to 9 it is 48 to 57, and other special symbols like space or something, like any special characters. So for these are the few ranges in which you can give the integer value to the character and you can see the respective outputs. So now comes the strings. Like strings, it is a major part. It is one of the most important thing you should learn in the C++. So it is a variable that is consists of more than one characters. Okay, so variable containing a collection of characters surrounded by double quotes. So as you all saw that in characters, whenever we want to store any single character, we surround it within the single quote. But here, for a collection of characters, that is for a string, we need to surround it with a pair of double quotes. So here you can see string is the keyword that I used here and it is the data type. So value is the name of the variable and equals to is the assignment operator and tutorial is the value that is surrounded by the double quotes, and tutorial is the string that is multiple characters tutorial. So it consists of 8 characters. So whenever we want to show the value of this variable, that is the value again, so the output will be tutorial. So for this thing to be valid, like you can't use string directly, as you all know how important header file is in the last lecture. So you need to include this string header file, include the string library, that is hash includes string within the diamonds for to use any function or anything you want to use related to string. As I told you that header files consist of all the functions that makes our work easier, And also for this string keyword to be valid and to use this, you need to include this string header file. So here you can see I have written the normal code that I explained here inside the main function, from where the execution will be starting of the program, and above that I have included the string header file. So next is how to take the inputs from the user. So for this we will be using the extraction operator or on cin. Okay, so uh, like as you all know, this is the operator we use along with cout, and this is the operator we use with cin, that is the less than and greater than on cin to display a string that is entered by the user. So whenever we give any input, we will be storing it in this variable. Like for example here, string name. So we have declared a string variable with the variable name, that is name here, and we will be asking the user to type his name or her name, and whatever input the user gives, we will be storing in the name variable. So whenever we give the output, like for example here, the user Komal will be entering her name, and your name here Komal will be the output. So next is like one important thing is cin, that is the object here. It considers a space like normal blank space, a white space, or tabs, etc., or enter, you can see, as the terminating character. Like for example, if I ask here the full name, so she enters Komal Behra, and you can see between this Komal and Behra here there is a blank space. So what the computer will do is it will take this blank space as the point of termination. So whatever we write after this space, it will just ignore it, and it will only take and store Komal as the value in the full name variable. So for this, like you will say how to then take the full thing, that is Komal Behra, as the full name, and how to store it. So for this, while working with strings, we often use getLine function. Again, about functions, I will be covering later on in this lecture itself. So, getLine function, what it does it, whenever you provide any line or like anything, okay, with whenever it consists of any space or tab or something, so it will include that. So for this, you can see here in the example I have written how to write this function actually. So getLine, it takes two parameters. So also again, what are parameters and all, I will be covering later. So just see this and keep this in your mind, that whenever we work with any functions, they take parameters. Okay. So here cin is the first parameter, and full name, that is the variable we have created of the string data type, is the second parameter. So now the computer asks us like what is your name, and so the full name here, she types Komal space Behra. So here it will store this space as a part of that string in the full name variable, and it will show the entire name as the output. So now comes one of the important part, that is how to access the value of the strings. So like in general, whenever you write cout, the name of the variable, you can get the entire string as the output. So what happens when someone, how to show the output whenever someone asks us like what is the value of the second character in the string? So it gets a bit difficult if you don't know how to access the single characters. So you can access the characters in a string by referring to its index number inside the square brackets. Like here, as you can see, for example, here I have declared a string variable, that is with the name value, and given man as the value, like within the double quotes. So man is the value of the string with 3 characters. So to access the first character, I have written here value of 0. So whenever you write the index value inside the square bracket like this, you get the output of the character at the respective position. So like you must be wondering like why it is 0 and why it is not 1. So it is the way we do actually, and we access the single characters in a string from the beginning. Like here you can see man 3 characters, that is 1 to 3. So if we subtract 1 from the respective number, like 1 minus 1 will be 0, so value of 0 will be capital M, that is the uppercase M. So like that, 1 will be giving the second character and 2 will be giving the third character value, and so on. So also, like whenever we want to change the value of any character, like for example here you want to write it can, but by mistake you have written it man. So like you have entered the value man. So to change the value, you can just write value of 0 equals to uppercase C inside single quote because it is a single character, and the output will show you. So now comes like how to know the length of the string. So as you all know, string consists of multiple characters. So someone asks you like how many characters are there in this string. So to show the like to tell him or her, you can use the length function or size function. Like to use any function, just use the variable name and with a dot operator and the function name. So here you can use both the functions like length as well as size function to show the number of characters in the string variable. So here in the text I have just written from uppercase every each and every letter in the uppercase. So A to Z it is of 26, 26 characters are there, 26 alphabets are there. So the output here will be simple. The length of the string is 26. So both the function works the same way. And mark one thing, here I have given a new line character. So about this, it is what I wanted to show you is that both the functions give the same output, and also you will get the output in the next line, that is at the same place in the beginning of the line just below the first output. So new line character you can use it both in single quotes or double quotes, it depends on you. So next we will be learning about string concatenation. So what is actually concatenation? So whenever you use any plus operator, you can see that you can use that to add any two floating point numbers or two integers. So here the same way, whenever we add two strings, the result is known as concatenated string, that is string concatenation. So here when we add any two numbers, we can call it numbers are added but strings are concatenated. So for this we can use the plus operator to add any two strings. Like here you can see for the like these are mark this, these are not two integers. Okay, this is one string and this is other string consisting of two characters. So here when I write x plus y and storing the value in the z and ask to show the output z, the output will be 1020, that is 1020. As there is no space here or at this end or in the beginning of y, so there is no space between 10 and 20, and you will be seeing the added value, that is a concatenated value of the result string z. So if I write any string 10, like here it is within the double quotes, so it will be a string, and any integer y. So both these are two different data types, that is y is an integer and x is a string. So we cannot add this both. Whenever we write, like you will write this and you will expect it to be any variable, like any value of string data type, so it will just simply raise an error. So next is like here another thing I have used the new line character, and also here I wanted to show you how to add space in between any two strings. So here I have used double quotes, so again it will be taking whatever inside this as a string. So I have put a just simple white space or blank space you can say, and I have shown you two outputs. One is result 1, that is the simple the result, and another is result 2. So here I have declared two string variables, that is first equals to Donald and last equals to trump. So these are both two strings, and when we add both of them and store it in the result, it will store the concatenated value, that is Donald Trump, without any white space. But here, when I store both the values with a white space in between, it will show it, and it will show Donald and Trump as two different words. Like this entire thing is one string and this entire thing is one string. But what is the difference? There is a blank space between the two names, that is the first and last name. Instead of plus operator, if you don't want to use it, it's up to you, but it's not a crime obviously. So you can also use append function. So what is a string is actually an C++ object. Okay, so you can access any functions under that you using just a dot operator, as I told you in case of dot size and dot length. So you can perform such operations on the strings like this. So here for example, string the first name equals to Sushri, and mark this, there is a white space or blank space at the end of Sushri, and the last name is Satarupa. So string full name is equal to first name dot append last name, because we want to append the last name to the first name. That is, first name will be coming first and last name will be coming next to the first name. So here I have stored the appended the last name to the first name and stored it in the full name. So output will be simply Sushri with a blank space Satrupa. Next comes what to use, like plus or append. It actually depends on you, but the major difference between the two is append function is much faster. Like whatever we are asking the compiler to do, it does it. So in case of append function, it gives the result much faster. But if you want to see for testing and such, like whether our output is correct or not, like for short for your use, you can use the plus function. It might be easier actually. And another thing is about the string.h. So here you saw various functions like append, size, length and all. So apart from all these functions, there are other functions like strcopy that will be copying the second string to the first string, and all these functions will be taking parameters. The both the string values, like one is empty and other one whose value you will be copying into that. And also you have got for concatenation itself, like ready-made function, you just need to give the parameters and you will be getting the results. So let's begin with functions. So what are functions basically? Functions are also known as methods that are used to perform certain actions. These are important for reusing the code. That what it means is you only need to write the piece of code once and you can use it as many times as you want in future, irrespective of the number of lines, because the functions can consist of 2 to 3 lines or even one line or hundreds and thousands of lines. But irrespective of the number of lines in the piece of code inside the curly brackets, you can call the function and use it whenever you want once you declare it. So it is just a block of code that runs when it is called. So you can pass the data that are known as the parameters into the function, and it does the work that we want it to be done upon the parameters. So how to create a function? So earlier you must have marked the int men, that whenever I showed you any example, there was a line integer men, and also within the curly brackets there were a few lines. So I told you that is the point from where the execution of the program starts. So this men is actually a predefined function, one of the more predefined function that are readily available to use. So how to declare a function? So to declare any function, we just need to follow this syntax. Like here, void is the return type, my function is the name of the function, and these brackets. So after the brackets, these curly brackets, and the piece of code that is to be executed goes inside this. Now, to call a function, that the functions that we declared are not executed immediately. That is, whenever we write any or define or declare any function and write the codes inside the curly brackets and all, it doesn't mean that the moment we close the curly brackets, the execution starts at that point. No, whenever we call any function inside any other function or inside the scope, after that only the function will be executed. As here it is, as it is written, like they are saved for later use and will be executed later whenever they are called. So to call a function, the function name is followed by two parentheses and a semicolon. Like here you can see in the example, void my function, and inside that what the function does is just show the output that I just got executed with a new line character. So here inside the main function, I have called my function 3 times. So it is, it doesn't matter how many times the function you call, but it only depends on you. Like you, I want my function to get executed 3 times. So I have called it 3 times. And here like the output is I just got executed is showing 3 times. So it doesn't matter how many times you call the function. It depends on your need only. So coming to the function declaration and definition part, a C++ function consists of two parts, that is declaration and the definition. Here you can see in this piece of code, like the function's name is my function and the return type is void. What it means is it is not returning any data type or any value whenever it is called. And the parameters that here is nothing, because the number of parameters can be 1 or 2 or 3 or any number of, or it can also be 0. So here in this case the number of parameters is 0. And the definition of the function, that is the body of the function that goes inside this pair of curly brackets, that is actually executed, or like what the function does for us, it goes inside this piece only. Another important thing that you should keep in your mind, that the function declaration should be before the very first function call. It doesn't matter how many times the function you call, but before the very first call, the function should be defined and declared. Like as you saw, before calling my function earlier, like here you can see, like I have defined my function before calling it for the very first time, or whenever or how many number of times I call the function, it doesn't matter, but the declaration of the function should be before the very first call. So here if you define declare and define the function after the function call, it will just raise an error that my function is not found or something like that. So uh, it is so because C++ works from top to bottom, like starts from the top and goes like that. So you will like whenever you execute any piece of code, you can also see that if there is any error, the error in the console it will show from the beginning. Like first it will go, if there is an error in number 9, line number 9, then it will go for line number 11, or like that only. Top to bottom approach is that. So for that it is mandatory to define the function before the very first function call, or else it will just raise an error. Also, like you saw earlier that along with void my function, like I defined it in the very beginning itself. Okay, so like you will, if someone stubborn or something like that, he will say that I'll define my function after the very first call of the function. So yeah, it is possible, but before that, you must declare the function. That is, you must make the compiler aware that something like my function exists in the piece of code, or else it will just raise an error. So here, void my function, it is the function declaration, or you can say it is the function prototype. That is what kind of function it is. So my function is returning nothing, so return type is void, and the name of my function is my function, and it takes no parameters. And then after here the integer main, this main function, I have just defined the function. So what my function does is it just shows the output I just got executed, like it is just a string. So like this, like you can, the code can be better organized and it is easier to read. So first you will know that something like my function exists, and I'm calling this function, and what the function is doing, here it is the definition. Another important thing is, whenever you write any piece of code, like you can write like both these lines, my function, and you can write return 0 in the same line only. Here call the function is the comment, as you all know, single line comment, and you can write both these two lines in single line. So after the semicolon it will take this return 0 as another line, but for user convenience and also make it look good and like anyone can understand, like don't make it look complex and don't write your code haphazardly. So now coming to parameters and arguments. So what are parameters? So parameters are specified just after the function name inside the parenthesis. Like here you can see the after the function name I have written three parameters, that is parameter 1, 2 and 3. So these are the information that are passed to the functions as parameters. So these are actually these will be acting as the variables that are used to fulfill our purpose, or whatever the piece of code is inside these curly brackets, it they all will be executed on these parameters. Like these parameters are going to get used inside these lines of codes. So you can have as many parameters as you want, but there should be a comma between two consecutive parameters so that the compiler can understand that these two, like parameter 1 and 2, are two different parameters. So it doesn't matter how many parameters are there, but it depends on you, like how many parameters do you need, like for to execute all these lines of code. So earlier you saw that here my function, it takes 0 parameters. It is error, sorry. So yeah, it here it will take 0 parameters, but here I have written 3 parameters. So this is the syntax you should follow. So here in the example you can see, so my function is here taking a string variable as the parameter. So fname is the parameter here, and it is just showing it, as you can see, cout fname is there with the new line character. So it will just show the fname value as the output. So here I have called the function my function inside the main function 3 times, and each time I have passed different parameters. So in the output you will see just Papon in one line, Sid in another line, and Rahul in another line. So earlier you saw like my function took 0 parameters, and here it is taking a string parameter. So whatever we are passing here, like Papon, Sid and Rahul, these three values, like the value we are passing, are known as arguments, and they are getting assigned to the fname. Like fname value will change every time you call the function, like it will depend on the value you are sending as like the arguments you are sending. So here fname like is the parameter will be papon, and papon will get assigned to the parameter, and in case of fname it will show the output as papon and sit and rahul, because 3 times we have called the function. So comes the default parameter. So what is actually a default parameter? You all know what a parameter is now, that we pass to the function, and why it is default. Like what is default? So as you all can see from the name itself, it is default parameter. Like by default, the value of that parameter will be something. For example, take a text editor and start writing something. So you will see that it is not like that before writing something you must select the font you want to use. So the moment you start writing, you can see all those letters coming in the screen, but by default there is a type of font that is being used. So here you will see like I have like whenever we call the function without any argument, it uses the default value that is present. So here in case of my function, the default value of the parameter country is Norway. That is here you can see my function I have provided here India argument. So India will replace the value of country, like the value of the country will be India whenever we provide any argument. So the parameter country will have the value India, and the output will be here India. And next line I'm just forgetting, or intentionally I'm not providing any argument or any value for the parameter country. So it will use the default value. Here it is Norway, so the output will be Norway. So to assign any value to the default parameter, we just use equals to sign. So here you can have, here I have taken string as example. It can be any integer or any floating point number, double or so it depends on you what you want to use, like what is the purpose of using this function, and accordingly you will set the default values and all. So another important thing is, whenever you call like define any function, the function can have two to many parameters as you want. So while assigning the default values, the default value the parameters having default value must be declared towards the end. Like for example, if I have here an integer x, integer y, and string country equals to Norway, so this parameter must be towards the end, like first integer x, integer y, then string country will come at the end. Next come multiple parameters. As you saw, like I already told you previously, like it doesn't matter how many parameters you are declaring, there is no limit, and it completely depends on your use, like how many parameters you want. So you can have as many parameters as you want and multiple parameters. So here I have provided Lisa as the first parameter argument, and 3 will be the second argument. So the Lisa gets assigned to F name and 3 gets assigned to age. So output here will be Lisa is 3 years old, because F name value is Lisa, and is mark this before is I have used a space, and also after is there is a blank space. That is why here there is space between Lisa is and is 3, or else it will just like all these three terms will be attached to each other. So age and years old with a new line character, so that the cursor or it will move just to the next line. So here in the notice, the function call must have the same number of arguments as their parameters, and the arguments must be passed in the same order. So what by this what we mean is, you can't pass 3 first and Lisa later, like 3 will go as the first argument and Lisa as the second argument, because it will just raise a type error, because string type parameter we need first, and then becomes the integer type parameter. So 3 cannot get assigned to the string, and Lisa within the double quotes is a string. We cannot assign any integer value a string, so it will just raise an error. So the number of arguments you are passing and the number of parameters must be equal, and the order in which you are passing the arguments should be equivalent to the data type, like the respective value and the respective data type of the value parameters must be same. Now comes the return value. So earlier you saw that my function had a void data type, void return time in fact. So that return type returned us nothing. But here I have written integer my function. It is taking a integer parameter that is x, and it is returning something like 5 plus x. So whatever value we are passing to the in place of this integer, like here I have passed 3 like argument, and here x will be having the value 3, and the output it will show 8, that is 5 plus 3. This integer data type or return type, sorry, is just a keyword like void. Like if you like here I have used integer, there can also be string or any float data type or any boolean data type. Like you can, whatever value you want to return, you will specify the data type of that as the return type of the function, and be careful about the value you are returning, because I can return here a string value because my return type is integer, so the return type must be an integer. So with this I'll wind up, and further I will be discussing about some advanced topic or some higher topics about functions, and like this example returns the sum of the two parameters. Like here I have passed two parameters, two integers x and y, and here the arguments I am passing is 5 and 3. So here the output will also be 8, but as you all can see, there I wrote like x like 5 plus x. Here I am just using both the parameters, that is x plus y, and the value will be 8. You can also like assign this x plus y to a variable and return that variable, but both the things will be same. In the next class, I'll be discussing about what is function overloading and pass by reference and value, etc. So that's all for today, and have a great day and be safe.